Well, hey everybody, KenPlume here with another edition of Force 5. This is the show where I have someone amazing come on as a guest to talk about their 5 favorite Star Wars action figures, collectibles, any era, any scale. The rules are really loose right now, but it's a fun conversation regardless. And for this episode, my guest is a collector, a customizer, a world builder. Landspeeder Luke, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
I have marveled from afar at the amazing work you've been doing, which we will talk about. Explaining my describing you as a world builder.
I like
But
that title.
well, you truly are. I hope you you see it as such, because you're making shelf space for folks even rarer than it already is.
That's a good way to put it.
You are fast filling up folks' shelves with even better ways to display their figures. But I kind of want to go into, as we do in the show, talk about a bit about your sort of collecting background. Like, what was the first thing that you remember actively collecting?
So I have this weird memory. Like as a collector, there's so much irrational behavior that goes into it that I've always been so fascinated in sort of exploring that and understanding what happened to me. But I just specifically remember, like, I was probably like 8 or 9 years old, and I got a book for my birthday, and it was the third book in a series, and it was like some YA detective novel, uh, and it was book three. And then so I read it, I really enjoyed it, and I got book one. And so on my shelf I had book one and I had book three, and I left a space in between them that I stared at for about 8 hours a day, and until I had saved up enough money to buy book two. But I specifically remember that obsession with, like, having that middle, just having book one and three and saying, okay, I need book two, like, and then I was like, and then I'll be done.
But I assume
And
these were
then
standalone stories. You weren't just sitting staring at book 3 going, I can't even start that without.
I think it was consistent, but I wasn't gonna wait, so I went ahead and read it and then went backwards. But yeah, I don't think I spoiled too much in doing so. But
But you knew what it
yeah, and
was
then I
like at
remember,
that
like,
moment to have a gap in your collection.
exactly, yeah, and I then ended up collecting the whole series, like 14, 15 books. I remember just really loving having those on the shelf, having those all lined up in order. I would lay them all out on the floor and, like, look at all of them. I honestly don't even remember what the book series was, uh, but I that was like such a just it was interesting how many little aspects of collecting, just like setting them all up together, looking at them in different, like, arranging them in different ways.
So you've
Uh,
always been very keen on the display part of having the collection as well.
yeah, just really loved that. And then I don't remember exact. I was 10 years old when the Phantom Menace came out. Um, and so, like, prime, I think prime target for that film. Um,
You're exactly
and
who George wanted to be in that theater.
exactly, yeah. Um, the long-term investment. And so I remember I went to, I don't know, because the Phantom Menace figures all came out before the film came out, right?
Yes, yeah, there was a big drop, so everyone was like, what are these characters?
Yeah,
How are
so
these even
I
going
I
to
don't
factor into the film?
I don't know why. I don't know what got me hyped for the Phantom Menace before it came out. We used to watch the original trilogy. My dad liked it. My brother used to rent it from Blockbuster, the original Star Wars, and I was always like, "You got this? You got Star Wars again?" And didn't really like it. Didn't hook me. That was like my brother's thing that he liked. And then I went ahead and got, but I guess something happened the last few months leading up to the Phantom Menace, and I got really into it because I had my mom take me to Walmart at 6 a.m. when they opened for the Phantom Menace release. And I remember I grabbed little boy Anakin, and he had the little backpack and the little blaster for some reason. Uh, and
Every character
and
had
it
a
was
little
my
blaster.
yeah, even a little Anakin. And so I bought it with my own money. Um, and then that was all I got. I just got that one figure for $6. And I remember I ran into another friend of mine that was there. He was buying Qui-Gon or someone cool. And we came home and I just continued, I was 10, so I don't remember all the details, but I did have probably around 15 to 20 of the Phantom Menace figures after a couple of years. And I
But you
was
also had
very
the
active
pictures
on
on the
like,
box. You knew well on the
yeah, I had
package
the
what other ones were available.
Yep, the Comtech reader. That Naboo starfighter, the silver chrome Amidala starfighter that came with a little yellow ship that fit in the front. I wanted that so badly because it was world building, and I really wanted that, and I didn't have enough money. My brother didn't. He was really stingy with his money, and I he bought it for me. He was a year younger, so he's probably like 11 years old, and he had saved up his Christmas money. He got me that Naboo starfighter because he knew how bad I wanted it. Um, and
I mean, that's an
that
impressive
is
gift. That's,
really impressive gift. Yeah, I think it was $50 at the time. Uh, and yeah, and so I'll, I guess important to the story is that between Attack of the Clones and pretty much the Rise of Skywalker, I was 98% tuned out of Star Wars. I didn't collect Star Wars. I didn't really do much other than an occasional Lego set here and there and that sort of thing. But I didn't see Rogue One in theaters. I only saw Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker in theaters out of all the recent films because my mom got tickets for us to go for Christmas as a family, and so I went into like Force Awakens completely blind. Like I don't know when it came out, but how close to Christmas did it come out? Do you remember?
that would have
But
been 2015 was the release of that.
yeah, but do you remember what day or month? Because
Oh,
I saw it.
that was a Christmas release. Yeah, that was end of the year. That
Okay,
was
so I
either
saw it
right
probably.
after maybe right after Thanksgiving or beginning of December,
Gotcha.
somewhere in there.
So I saw it a little bit late after it came out, a week or two, and like had no idea that Han Solo died. I didn't even know that like they were going to be in the movie. So I was like like I look back now and I'm shocked at how tuned out I was of all of that. Um, and I would watch them when they'd come out, but I remember like I watched Rogue One at home, a few months after it came out, and then I watched The Last Jedi and didn't finish it. Like I was just so casual about it. But going back to, so I think it's more interesting. Like the past 3 years that I've been collecting and learning 3D printing and that sort of thing, I have been rediscovering these things that I had as a kid that I totally forgot. And one thing that I found recently that really blew my mind, like just in the past month, that I have here. Let me grab it. Um, I haven't even opened it yet. I got it on eBay a couple weeks ago. It's this Mos Espa Market, um, really mini diorama, and it in the I don't know how well you can see that. Let me raise this up a little bit.
Are they
But on
like
the back, you can see that like you can go inside Anakin's house from behind. Like it has his quarters fleshed out, and just something about this. I was looking at this. I was like, this is what I've wanted to create for 3 years. Been. This is what that urge has been leading me to. Is like making this in Black Series scale. Like just so much of these design elements are exactly what I do, and like just the way that just a little bits of props scattered about to just really complete the scene without having to actually complete the scene. um, this like blew my mind for multiple reasons, just being like, oh my God, I've had this in my head for 20 years and didn't realize it. Um, and so that was really cool
yeah,
to
you
like
don't need much to
rediscover
be
and
evocative
remember. Yeah.
of those places. Like, I know you just did what, a
Right.
moisture evaporator and
Yep. Yeah, and
uh
just a couple things scattered around. Because I've always approached dioramas as, you're what makes the figure so special compared to statues or uh, busts and that sort of thing is that you put them in your space and they exist in your space. It's like they almost come alive on the shelf like Indian in the cupboard. And I'm actually very like almost like morally opposed to figures being on stands. Like I feel like on a shelf, I feel like that kind of kills it, which is kind of why I designed my hexagon stands the way they are, where the stand disappears into the display rather than looking like it's part of the figure. I always hated those figures you would get as a kid that had the base glued to the feet. Like I was like,
Right.
this does nothing for me. And so anyway, yeah, so I collected I had that poster with all of the Phantom Menace figures on it that was taped up next to my bed. I was reading the Star Wars magazines. I even took a photo with my brother with all of our collection laid out that we meant to send into one of the magazines and then just never got around to it, which I'm glad because we still have like the 4x6 somewhere at my parents' house. And so then that led up to Attack of the Clones coming out. I absorbed every single leak. I read the entire. There was like a leaked script that they had put together using all like aggregating all of the different leaks and rumors into a script, and then I read the graphic novel, which was it was it was a time where the graphic novel had the entire plot almost line for line, and that would come out weeks before the movie came out because I knew you would see the movie anyway. They weren't really trying to keep secrets as much, and so I did that, and then I went to the midnight premiere for Attack of the Clones. And then I collected a bit of the Saga collection, that blue and white packaging. Um, and then I guess I was sort of getting towards high school age because I remember Revenge of the Sith came out, and I didn't see it opening weekend. I didn't see. I went and saw it on a random Thursday with a friend of mine from high school, and we kind of made fun of it the whole time. Probably threw stuff at the screen. And so like I was that kid by then, I was kind of out of it. And then that really just continued through my 20s mainly. Um, and there were little bits of collecting. There used to be a Kid Robot store on the way home from my commute and my first job in New York. And I would pass by that store and I'd pick up I would look through. I just started getting into South Park. I was very late to the game, but my one of my bosses was insisted that I get into South Park, just given my sense of humor, I think. And so I went in and I bought a figure, and I got a Chase variant. I got like Kyle's dad, or is it Kyle's dad? I forget. He came with the giant ball sack, but he
Mr. Pavlovsky.
uh, yeah, it's like the Kyle's dad, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I Stan. I got that figure and I got home. I was like, oh my gosh, this is worth $40. I paid $10 for this. So I don't really care too much about this character. If I sell this, I got two more chances of getting, or I got four more chances of getting the main kid. So I threw it up on eBay, got like $35 for it or something. And then the next day that I was passing by the shop, I was like, well, now I can get a couple more figures. This is like I'm a year out of school. I had no money. And so I did that, and then uh kept kept buying those, and then went through a breakup, and then uh went crazy collecting, and bought the Millennium Falcon Lego set, built that, bought the Death Star Lego set. And I mean, I think I had $700 in the bank, and I bought this $400 Lego set.
Emotional
And
priorities. It happens.
yeah. And then I realized that I can like build Lego sets and then sell them on eBay. So I was like, I'll buy it used. I'll save $75 there. I'll sell it for roughly what I paid since it was already opened and used. And then eBay takes their 10%. And it's like I spent, 40, $50 to spend 3 weeks building this thing. That feels like money well spent. And so yeah, I like collected the entire Simpsons Kid Robot line. And then as soon as I finished it, I sold it off. I was like, okay, I can't have this stuff here. And I was in a tiny New York apartment with three roommates, like no room for a collection closet. I barely had room for my clothes. Um, and it was also this thing that I hid from them. I was like, they don't need to see my toys. Um, and
Don't look at me
and then I
build.
collected
Don't
like
look at me build.
the yeah. I collected the Bob's Burgers line of the mini figures that were like around 2.5 inches. But I remember, yeah, a friend was helping me move, and he opened the box like, "Why do you have a box of Bob's Burgers toys?" Um, and I was like, "Oh, because I like them." He's like, "Oh, okay." Um, so anyway, there were these little bits of collecting and in there, but nothing too serious and nothing on display, and it wasn't really something that my friends would associate with me. And then I was at Disneyland in like 2019, and I got I saw the C3PO and R2D2 Droid Depot pack, and I looked at them. Actually, no, sorry. A few years before, it's crazy. I was traveling for work, and I was in Texas, and I was in Fort Worth at an office building, really boring, work thing. And I walk out of the office, and right across the street is Holocron Toys. Um, in Fort, like, I was like, I look back now and I'm like, that is crazy that I literally walked out. I was waiting for an Uber, and I looked up and I was like, wait, Holocron, I think that's a Star Wars word. There's a little Death Star up front. Let me check this place out. And I go in, and was really just like blown away by that, and finding a bunch of stuff that I forgot that I had owned from the Phantom Menace era especially, and starting to do that. And I really like, they had these 4 packs that they released. I think they were like the white cereal boxes almost size, like that size, and they had 4 figures in it, and they had one for episodes 1 through 6, I think. And I was like, oh, these are kind of cool. Like, I love the idea of like them being split into little groups and that sort of thing from each movie. But I was like, okay, I can't fly home with these, so I'll look at these online when I get home. I looked them up, and then the more I looked at them, I was like, these aren't really that good. Like, just aesthetically, they're just not there. Um, and I think that was like the main thing that I didn't like, because I during that random collecting phase, I also collected the Simpsons minifigures, and something about the uniformity of that, having a consistent scale, consistent posability, and like all of that, even though it was the Lego minifigures,
Right.
still felt there was something there that hooked me. And so I later, so yeah, I think the only thing that stopped me from buying was like the quality of the figures wasn't there yet. And I remember saying like, thank God Kid Robot hasn't done like a Star Wars line, or else I have bought all of those. So I still recognize that I had that like Star Wars, it's still nostalgic to me. So anyway, I'm at Galaxy's Edge with friends, and I saw the Droid Depot pack of the Black Series that had C3PO and R2D2 in it, and I was like, oh, these look amazing. Like, these are perfectly sculpted, proportionate. Now I realize R2 is a little small, but at the time I was like, this is great. So I didn't buy it then. I did build a lightsaber at the workshop, but then I got home and I ordered those. So then I had C3PO and R2 up on this little ledge in my bathroom. And people would be over and they'd go into the bathroom and say, oh, I love your little C3PO up there. Um, and then I think I bought like the Stormtrooper with the blast effects from the Black Series. And that was that he went up there also in my bathroom. Great place to store action figures. And
Did it
then
feel like you were just getting one-offs at this point and weren't really committed to
yeah, and on my
collecting?
desk I had like a couple different figures from different, like a couple Kid Robot ones. It's just like a slight little expression. I kind of like the way that my apartment was very. I tried to go very trendy with the design, and I like the way that the little pops of color looked mixed in with that. I felt like that kind of was me. Like, it's like I can be serious. I can like have a real job, but then I was like, but I don't forget to play. I like
I can
playing.
also have
I
droids
was
in my bathroom.
playing a lot of yeah, I was playing a lot of Fortnite. Like, I played a lot of video games. I would, I'd meet people and they'd be like, "Oh, you're like such a nerd," like and uh I yeah, and so I got like the Uncharted NECA figure because I was really big into that game. Um and then I started watching The Mandalorian, and I don't remember the exact timeline. I think it was right before the pandemic. Kind of watched through The Mandalorian with a friend that was into Star Wars, and um
Yeah, I guess first season of Mando would have been over Christmas of 2019, over the holidays.
yep. And so wow, I didn't realize it was that close to the pandemic. Um but I got the Mando Black Series figure, and it was online, and it was like $45, and I was like, okay, if these, like, I started looking into the Black Series and being like, how does this work? All of the, it's a very confusing line to get into. Like, how do I know what size this is? Having to add 6 inch in your search term so you don't actually accidentally buy a 3 and 3/4 inch figure. And so I found the Mando figure. I bought that one in his original armor, and yeah, it kind of opened the floodgates, and I got a couple. I think I found Cara Dune and IG-11 at Best Buy, and I was like, oh, these would look cool next to Mando, and I got those, and it was just this very slight or slow trickle, very reluctant of getting into it,
You
and
still weren't committed.
kind of yeah, I didn't want to let myself get obsessed. I didn't want to. I was like, this isn't something. This isn't a reasonable thing to collect. They're too big. There's too many. But I was like, let me get, and so I would get like I got Vader, and then I got um, Hoth Luke or like Snowspeeder Luke and Hoth Leia. And that was like right when I didn't realize it at the time, but now I realize like that's the year that Black Series started getting really good. Um, and because I think if I had stumbled on Force Awakens Ray or there's these figures from 2015 prior, I would have just passed on them because they just weren't any good. Um, and so yeah, that all it all just kind of happened. And what I was doing is I would have like around 15 of them, and I had them out on a shelf in my apartment that you could see, and um, I would get a couple new ones and I'd sell a couple of the older ones. Like I'd be like, I didn't want to let myself like have too many. And so I'd be like, okay, let me get rid of some of these, get some more. But every time I would do that, I'm only going to keep 15. And then I would become 25 and I go down to 20 and I go up to 30, I go to 25. Um, so anyway, the pandemic hits and someone that I know was talking about 3D printing and telling me that I should get a 3D printer. And I'm like, what the hell am I going to 3D print? Like, and he was like, oh, let me show you the software on iPad. I think you would actually really like it. And so showed me Shaper 3D. And this is like first week of lockdown. And so I ordered the printer and then I started reading about it and I started getting really excited about it. And but it took like 9 days to ship. So during those 9 days, I'm learning Shaper. But the first day I made this moisture vaporator that is completely unprintable, but as just a render, it looked great. And I was shocked. Like it had these tutorials built in, and I was looking at it going, if you and I got so absorbed into it for 5 hours, I did not move. I was just hunched over that iPad, and I
Why
go,
that
if
is
you
your
had,
first choice?
uh, I think I liked the idea of world building around my figures because I already had the figures, and so. Um, I was getting back into that enjoyment of world building and having the figures pose out on the shelf. And
But that's an
I
iconic
always
thing
loved the
specific
Legos.
to, Tatooine, if you're going to define Tatooine.
Yeah, I
But
don't
it's a
know. You know
curious
what? There
thing
was
looking at you getting that Mission Fleet box recently and having that epiphany
oh yeah,
moment.
which has the moisture vaporator. Yeah, I think Tatooine was just uh because the thing is I played a lot of Star Wars video games in between. Oh, I also I played Star Wars Galaxies when I think I was 13 going into 14. And I did nothing but play that game for a year. And I just watched a video recently and I realized that was a really unique time in online gaming. That game specifically is like studied and referenced as like this really special time in online gaming before Warcraft came along. Um, and I had like I got really into it. I had a guild with like 120 people in it that I was the president of. That's like this little 13-year-old. And we were based out of Tatooine, I think. And that was just always my favorite planet. And when I'm designing my dioramas and I'm making Hoth and making I'm very aware of our relationship to these planets is more than just a few scenes in a movie. It's like we've been there in Lego sets, we've been there in play sets, in video games, in a whole number of different avenues. That it's like the film. It's like it feels like Tatooine and Hoth and these iconic planets are these almost permanent, eternal things, and that the movies are one representation of them. The Lego sets are another representation of them. The video games are another. They're all going to be a little different, but um, they exist larger than just a scene in a movie. Especially if you grew up exploring those worlds in the video games, and that I had the Phantom Menace PC game and running around Mos Espa, um, and force pushing people and uh, all of that. So yeah, when I would sit down to make something for the like, I would tend towards Star Wars, and I just happen to yeah, I don't know why I picked the moisture vaporator. I think it just seemed like it's made out of circles and squares basically, and I felt like that was good one to start with. And so I was learning the software, and I was really happy with the result. And I can show you if you give me a second to grab my iPad. Um, I think I can talk while I go, but
Definitely.
yeah, I really I didn't think that I'd be able to do that in less than 6 months.
Because that's something, as far as pieces like this, for the most part, folks were at the mercy of the toy companies to produce these dioramas,
Mhm.
or you would make them out of whatever things you had. But most folks are not as creative uh to
Mhm.
realize these things, so they were serviceable little diorama pieces.
So this was my first time using this any 3D modeling software. And I put this together, and it was a lot. It was so intuitive. It's like you draw a circle and you drag it up, and you have a cylinder. You do the draw a square, you drag it across. You have a cube, and then you can draw something. You rotate it around an axis. If you're consistent, move it every 15 degrees. It's going to look like that. And this is totally unprintable. It has no understanding of like how 3D printing works, and there's definitely a lot of mistakes in here. But like just being able to look at something like this in 3D and know that I had made it, I couldn't, and I credit the software a lot for that, for being so intuitive, and just being able to touch it and use the iPad pencil really helps. But this was like such a mental unlock for me, where I was like, oh my gosh, I made this, what else can I make? And that just got the ball rolling. And um,
Do you feel that
the
your
printer
commitment
arrived. I
to
set it up.
do you feel your commitment to collecting the series is goes hand in
Mhm.
hand with, now you have that ability? Because you've stated that design and your
Yeah,
presentation is important to you. If you have these collectibles, to now be able
mhm.
to create this entire design aesthetic that you want and see in your head,
Yeah. I
as opposed
think
to just figures on a shelf.
I've always loved creating things and showing people them. Like I was the kid in high school that would like make the short films, and people knew me as, oh, you're the film guy. Like, I didn't make friends with people that way. And I used to design MySpace templates for friends, custom, like I would do all the HTML coding, and that's how I like became friends with the seniors when I was in ninth grade, and uh, all of that. And so I really love making stuff and putting it out there. And so but at the time, yeah, I was just making it for myself, and I don't remember the exact timeline. I started getting interested in customizing. I got a some chrome paint to try to paint up Mando into the Beskar armor, um, and was started looking online on Instagram and that sort of thing, and following different people. I mostly followed the Black Series subreddit on Reddit, um, and yeah, it was just this very slow trickle, very reluctant trickle into this fandom. Um, and what happened is, so during the pandemic, it was like my job it involves interacting with people, and so I didn't work, I didn't make any money for a while, and I didn't even start. Um, like I didn't make any money from basically March through September, and uh, so I started, designing stuff and putting it on Reddit, putting it on finding Facebook groups. And I hadn't even created like Landspeeder Luke yet, and or that title. And I posted my Millennium Falcon diorama, which is like the oldest post on my Instagram. I don't remember. I think I put it on Reddit, and all of a sudden people are offering me money for that, and I was like, oh my god, I have this machine here that can print stuff that people want to buy. Um, and so I kept working on that and designing a couple other things, and I made these stands that hold the figure and the box in place in a way that just kind of shows a very small portion of the box. So you have like a nice clean background to display your figures. I'm pulling it up on my phone to show you. And I put those up for sale. This one here. Um, I put those up for sale and sold basically enough to keep me busy for a month. And so I bought a second printer and I started printing these things off. And it was a nightmare because I wasn't familiar enough with 3D printing in order to prevent and quickly fix issues. So like printers kept breaking. There were weeks when all three of them were out, and I'm stressing because I've got all these people who have these open orders that are waiting for these, and then I started shipping them to people, and they were breaking in transit, and there was a lot of some inconsistencies in the printing, and the quality wasn't great, and I was getting complaints, and it was like this nightmare situation to get to then earn this money that I had already made a month before, and I'm still, it's like just pumping out these orders, having to go to the post office or getting them to pick stuff up. Like it just wasn't the way to do it. And so that's when I decided to start doing things. And same with the Endor bunker. I had created that after about 6 months of printing, and it just wasn't practical for me to be producing these for people. And that's when I decided to start Patreon and just make the files available for people. So it's just purely a digital output now. And that's been so much more fun. And that the joy is in designing, the joy is in making the one, and then everything, if I have to make the same thing again, that's just work. And so I've got I've got a bunch of amazing sellers that now make this stuff available for people who don't want to buy the printers. But then a ton of people on the Patreon that make it so it's really exciting to come up with something or see something in an episode and be like, oh, I want to make that, design it, print it, and then post it. And then like within a few hours, someone in Singapore has it, and someone in just across the country, across the world has it on their shelf.
Right.
That's
Without the
that
stress
still
of
hasn't gotten. I still
having to
haven't gotten
crank them
used to
out,
that.
clean them up,
Thank
ship
you.
them out.
Right.
Have that
And I think
burden.
there's something really special about making it yourself. And because when I started printing, I just even if it wasn't my design, just figuring it out and getting something to come out of that printer and have it look great was like so thrilling. You're like, I made this. This wasn't. I haven't left my house, and now this thing is here. Where did it come from? Like that is just such a magical thing that still hasn't gotten old yet.
Yeah, there's something about that physical object existing that didn't exist, particularly when it's of something
Hmm.
that you always wanted, whether it
Yeah,
be like a
exactly. And so
figurine
I'm
or something practical that you're like, oh, I always wanted. Like I was posting about shelf extenders. Like I always like the
mm,
idea of extending space out from the shelf and having little display pieces, but they don't make shelf extenders.
mhm.
And so, this is the very rough of it that we did, but working with a friend of mine to do a shelf extender that
Mhm.
goes on the shelf, and it's just on the edge of of a shelf, and then more
Yeah,
display space when you have too much stuff.
perfect. Yeah, I saw that on your Instagram yesterday.
But then, thinking about the stuff you do, we've been looking at before we talk about your figures, which we're going to start. We're going to start in a second for everyone watching
Yeah.
and for you. But you've customized your turntable. Just a standard turntable, I'm
Yeah.
assuming that anyone can get off of Amazon, but through 3D printing,
Yeah.
you made it Star Wars fancy.
Yeah, I figured if it's gonna be in my videos, it should look cool.
And it
So
does.
yeah, it has a little gap in the back for the wire and so I can access the buttons. It took 2 tries to get the size right. I measured, but I also guesstimated a bit, and then this one just sits on top. And then I have a couple other versions of this that has um, like one of them has a cutout for one of the hexagon stands. Um, but there's not real reason. I thought it would just help hide the stand a little bit more. And then I had a couple with foot clips in them, but just the way that they printed, the foot clips broke. And so I was like, it doesn't make sense to reprint a whole 7-hour print for a tiny piece that can break. And so I need to just kind of restructure that a little bit.
Maybe make the plates modular.
But yeah, this was like, it's an idea. And then I took me maybe 45 minutes to design on the iPad. And then I have 3 printers now. So each one of these was on a different printer. And I woke up and it was in my house.
That's
And
well,
it's
you gave
just
me the idea
hard to
that
beat that.
the idea that I'm not skilled enough to do so, so I'll be getting help to do so. But the fact that there is a display space here that can be customized
Mhm.
with anything. So I was thinking, well, if it's going to be
Yeah.
Java stuff, I could have, the little gargoyle heads on the front of it,
Oh, that'd
ornamentation,
be cool.
and depending
Yeah.
on what characters are on it, customize it that way. So
Yeah, if you
But
look
no,
at like
but
some
now I
Gentle
have
Giant
my shelf
statues,
extenders,
yeah,
and they fit a
awesome.
hot toy.
We got to get you
But
some hexagon stands.
your hexagon stands are brilliant. Uh, the
Thank
uh,
you.
the design on those. But I want to get at least your first figure. We can talk about your first. So what is a recurring thing in these shows? I'll preface this is that I make it
Mhm.
very much aware to the guest ahead of time about ranking their choices, and I know it's always a difficulty because our choices change all the time just by a dint of being collectors. There's always something new. You're always going to have different feelings about things based on the day or the
Mhm.
moment. So I'm going to preface by saying the 5 that you're going to rank right now are arbitrary to this moment in time. Uh,
Okay.
can change at any time. And because I know you're going to talk about some unique stuff, uh, I will say ahead of time, I forced him to do this. So
Yeah.
So there is no personal slight whatsoever to some brilliant items and creators that you're going to discuss. So this is all on me. I accept full responsibility for it. No way, shape, fashion, or form is this Landspeeder Luke's responsibility for doing this. Other than I told him that he had to rank the
Yeah.
things that are sitting in front of him. So we're going to go from 5 to 1. So as of right now, in
Cool.
this moment, under duress, what is your number 5
Yes.
choice building up to your number 1?
So I have the Mayfex Boba Fett, um, which it's just one of those that I can't stop looking at it. Like it's certain figures, you get them and you open them and you're like, okay, and you put it on the shelf and then you're done with it. This one I just like cannot believe that it goes. I think it was like going for $75. And comparing that to some figure arts and that sort of thing, or even some Black Series offerings that are a little bit more in the higher price range, I just think this thing is amazing. It's perfect. It's like one of the best proportioned figures I've ever seen. It just like it feels I more than almost any other figure. I look at that and I see it's like I feel like you could put that into if you blew that up life size, people wouldn't know that it was a figure. Like if you put it into a photograph and that one would it would just look perfect. So
Do you
yeah, I really love
generally
that one
have
and
a
I waited a
preference?
long time.
You generally have a preference
Good.
because there's those 3 camps of SH Figure Arts, MAFX, and Black
Mm-hmm.
Series. Is there one that you think
Mm-hmm.
overall does consistently the best work?
Um, man, that's
And they and
tricky.
they have
There's
and they have
like
vastly different price points too. We should also mention.
I will say that the best of the Black Series holds up with the best of figure arts. Um, I think like comparing Farm Boy Luke figure arts and Black Series is embarrassing to Hasbro. Same with their Leia, like their original trilogy crew is unmatched. They all have their strengths because I have some of the Force Awakens Mayfix figures and they are trash. I have the C3PO and it falls apart just by looking at it wrong. And uh, so it's hit or miss, and I think that's kind of nice. And I wish there were more lines that had the license for 6-inch Star Wars, but I'm just happy that we get these 3 companies that all are within the same scale, roughly.
So
That
you
you know
can mix and match.
I can have yeah I can have my Black Series Stormtrooper next to my Mayfex Vader next to the figure arts Luke, and they all work great. And so I just try to get the ultimate one of each one. So yeah, and it's tricky because like lately Mayfex and figure arts have only been doing Bobos and Mandos, and they did do IG-88 or IG-11, which was great. No, IG-11, yeah. Um, and but yeah, it's hard to say, but I call myself a Black Series YouTuber, or I call my Instagram a Black Series account, because, and I say I make my files for Black Series figures just because it's obviously so much more extensive. Um, but I pretty much buy anything Star Wars that they all make, especially now that I'm doing YouTube and I have a reason to be reviewing things and comparing things. I like to have a broad collection. So I have, like I did a review of this and I had the um, Black Series boba, I had the Figure Arts boba, and I had the Manifex boba, even though only one of those is going on the shelf.
Now I notice this has something you
So
prefer
I enjoy all three.
in this scale.
What's that?
And I noticed this thing has something you
Oh,
prefer in this scale, which is plastic over soft goods when it comes to that cape.
yes. Yeah,
So
I don't
so what is
mind
your,
when it's I don't mind.
because people fall on
What's my
either
problem with
side of
soft goods,
this.
right?
Yeah, so people fall on the, I know like our mutual friend Mike Case loves his soft goods
Mhm.
and tends to prefer a soft good.
Yeah. Um, well, Mike is wrong. No, I
he's he's watching this right
Mike's
now.
the
You
reason
just
I'm
you
I'm on the
just
show,
made
but
Mike
yeah, I know.
cry.
Yeah. I texted him right before this that I was about to jump on with you, but yeah, no, I think a lot about how we all have different connections to Star Wars and different connections to the figures. And like, I didn't watch the Clone Wars until 2021. I didn't even know that it was airing on Disney Plus for that seventh season at the time. Um, and so it's like I hold a clone trooper in my hand and I don't feel much. Um, and the figures that I grew up with did not have soft goods. It was all sculpted plastic. I've always kind of preferred that. Um, so I don't know if I would have a different relationship to soft goods if they were done. If I grew up with figures that had soft goods on them, I just tend to think that soft goods on figures just look terrible. Like I think about if you photograph good sculpted plastic, it's gonna look like it just looks the way it's supposed to. And I feel like soft goods just don't look right. It's very rare for them to actually look right, unless it's just like a simple cape, like the Grand Inquisitor, the Riva figures that have that cape. But like the thing that goes on, I posted a photo a while ago of like a Balenciaga fashion show, or Lenny Kravitz with a giant scarf, which was a Photoshop. But that's what I see when I look at. This is what
Is that
figure like
Palpatine?
6 inch and below with soft goods. That's what I
Which
see,
Jedi
and
is that?
yeah. But I'm also someone that is going to prioritize aesthetics over articulation and playability. And so, like my Heroes of Endor set, I put Luke and Leia and Han in plastic goods instead of, but it's like they can't sit on the speeder bike now. And so, if I were designing that toy of Luke Skywalker, I would have put a soft goods camo cloak on him because he needs to be able to sit on that speeder bike. Same with Emperor Palpatine. I'm gonna put him in soft goods so he can sit on the throne that he comes with. But I on display I have the Figure Arts one that is sculpted plastic, and has an alternate body for sitting, which it's not as playable and it's not as toyetic, but that's just kind of
But the
where I
Figure
fall
Arts
on
one
that
is the only one where
spectrum.
his
And
feet actually touch the ground, right?
I can't say for sure. It's been a while since I had the Black Series one.
Because I think all the
Yeah.
generally that's the problem with any Palpatine in Thrones is that he has little
Gotcha.
kitty dangly feet.
Yeah, adorable.
Yeah, he just kicks back. Yeah, he has fun.
Yeah.
He's a fun time emperor. Is there any figure that you feel is you begrudgingly even is like that's a great soft good. That's really nice.
Um, I'm trying to think of any the new Luke Skywalker Black Series figure. That one I thought the soft goods were improved, and looked decent as a cape. But it's something about it's like there's that I always think about the drawing of the horse that gets progressively worse. Um, and there's this like in my head when I look at a figure that's got part soft goods and part sculpted plastic, it looks like it was made from two different materials, or it's something that's like only half painted. And it just like there's this dissonance there that I don't really that just I can't look past.
Right. It's like a child one. Here, I made you a cloak. You're gonna wear it, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it's just like if you look at that A New Hope Princess Leia, and the thing that people always say, they're like, "Yeah, I agree with you that usually when they're cheap, they don't look good." I'm like, "Yeah, but they're always cheap. Like it's rare, to get a figure." And if there were like, I guess, is it Mayfex that does the 112th line that
The
or
NECA.
uh
NECA does.
no, there's where they like have like they make the Spider-Man that has the cloth suit.
Yeah, it's their 112. Yeah, that's NECA.
Oh, that's NECA? Oh
Yeah.
wow, I didn't know that. Um but yeah, I mean, I've yet to see a soft goods figure that outshines the sculpted one. Like if you look at the Black Series Princess Leia compared to the figure arts Princess Leia, even in their like official photos, it's like it's just the dress looks 3 times too big. I don't know.
It's curious to
Anyway.
see when they make those decisions because, obviously they could have chosen to put the recent Mon Mothma in cloth goods, but they
Yeah.
didn't. But that
Yeah,
dress
and
is every
I'm
bit
good
as
friends with
similar to what they have done with Leia's in the recent past.
True, yeah. Um I'm good friends with Frederick from Frederick's Figures, and he does a lot of sewing and soft goods, and he has a costuming background. And I have one of his figures here that actually does have soft goods on it. But
And
we
you
talk
let it into
about
your house. No.
I let it into my top five. And so, but we always joke about like when the Mon Mothma came out or the Bib Fortuna, and that they were sculpted plastic. We always go, "Thank God!" And like he's someone that he makes clothes, and he's been making uh, costumes for years, and he also can't stand soft goods when they're done
And yet
wrong.
the 3 3/4
Um,
scale cloth on bib turned out really well, surprisingly.
I did look at that, and yeah, that one is cut nicely, but
It's right there.
I still see two different materials clash together.
Right. Or bib.
But speaking, shall I show you the Frederick figure that
Is that going to be number 4 in your list? Or is this an honorable
yeah, why
mention?
not? No, it's in my top five.
And again, no slight
So
to
we've
anyone.
got
I made him do this.
I'm letting the conversation guide the order here, but this is a custom Ula that was in my Java's Palace shelf that Frederick made that I featured on my YouTube channel. I've got it on my Instagram. That just totally blows me away. And the outfit is made out of soft goods, or that it's a mesh fabric. I don't know how well this will. Wow, that actually does pretty good. Look at that face. Um,
But the mesh
just
scales
like
surprisingly
unbelievable.
well.
Right, you wouldn't. Yeah, you don't pick it out as being different, and that's the kind of soft good stuff that is allowed on my shelf. But yeah, this is just a kit bash of a number of different bodies and then a 3D printed head, and it even came with some alternate hands that he painted up. I just every part of it is so good, and I just think that she looks so cool on the shelf next to Java.
Now is the loincloth also uh
It
cloth
looks like a
goods?
little bit of pleather, yeah, like a very thin leather. It might even be cloth. I know he does a glue wash on clothes sometimes, so they
Just
have
firm
kind
up.
of a stiffness to them. Yeah, so they hold a little bit better. So, um, yeah, if that kind of stuff was done on other soft goods like Jedi robes and whatnot, and then I think these are actually just rubber bands holding it together, but they looked enough like the straps that she wears. But yeah, I had my, and this was a gift because I had my Jabba's Palace shelf up for a while, where my whole shelf was this diorama of Jabba's Palace, and so he saw that it was missing someone and
Had
surprised
he
me with
already
that. That
developed
was
the
pretty.
Ula prior to that?
Yes, he had done one before. Um, here's how this was my diorama with her in it. Um,
Now you had
that
also done all the set pieces, right? Aren't those your designs?
Yeah, all of those are on my Patreon. They're all printable. But I made that I think before I was doing Patreon, and so I kind of designed it to fit my shelf specifically. So it still all works as one piece, but I'd probably go about doing it a little bit differently now. I do want to revisit that, make it a little bit more accessible for smaller printers in the future, because I made that for my larger printers that are not as common.
And that's a metal chain, right?
Yep, just a little like a necklace chain that was, I think, weathered, painted gold.
So what was the first
I guess
custom
had a little
figure
gold
you
tips.
got? Because that's another step to take in this. It's one thing you're getting store-bought
Um,
figures, and then you're building your own set pieces, but customization is another territory entirely.
yeah, I started getting a little bit deeper into collecting. I had some sequel trilogy stuff, and then I saw the Leia that Tim's Toys had made, um, and from is that Force Awakens or Rise of Skywalker? That's Rise of
I
Skywalker, I
think
think.
that's Rise, right?
Um, yeah, and was just this is just a repaint of a Black Series head. Um, let me do that for exposure. There we go. Just like insane detail here. Uh, and that was, yeah, that was one that I got that it was the most I had paid for a figure, and I think the price was totally fair, but that was like a because buying a custom is different than buying something that you can just like throw up on eBay if you decide to quit collecting. So this was like a commitment to collecting for a while when I got this one. But that was the first custom that I bought.
So what was it about it
Um,
that attracted you to get to sort of pulling the trigger on that one as the one
I
to
don't know.
dive
I
in?
think Carrie Fisher, I have such a, I was so sad when she passed. I had like such a surprisingly emotional reaction to that. And the more I kind of researched her life and, watching her one woman show and all of that, I think she's just really one in a billion as a person. And something about this figure just like felt like Carrie.
And it's a beautiful piece, and that's all hard
Thank you. Yeah,
goods, right?
yeah, so he cast this, I think he sculpted it and then makes casts of them. So everything other than the arms and the head is handmade. I really don't know how they do it. I've been customizing for 3 years or 2.5 years, and I still am like miles away from this. I can fake it enough for a good picture on Instagram, but having these in hand is really mind blowing. He has that Last Jedi Leia with the black robes and the cane, and I've been telling myself, okay, I don't need three Leias from the sequel trilogy.
It's too late.
Um,
It's too late now.
especially,
You
and yeah, I just texted him. I was like, hey, if you ever make one of those, I want, it's time. I'm ready to just admit that I'm gonna buy these. Um,
yeah, you can't. It's
Ken, if I
it's like having volume 1 and 3 of the book series.
of the books, right? Yeah, exactly. It's literally,
It's literally just
um,
like having 1 and 3.
yeah.
So we should talk about then your number 3. We're up to number 3 already.
And again, letting the conversation guide the order here. Another one from Tim's Toys that was a gift. So this past year, or birthday, yeah, my last birthday actually, I had a big party planned. I was going to have like 30, 40 people over. My friend was going to let me use his larger house for the backyard. I was so excited. I woke up the morning of my birthday and felt a little funky. And I had a friend that was getting married the next week. And so I was like, you know what, let me do a COVID test. And that way I can at least tell her, hey, I'm a little sick. It's not COVID, but if you don't want to come, I understand. And I do the test and it was positive. And so I found out the morning of my birthday that I had COVID. And
Oh,
and I felt okay. Like it was more just like, I had to cancel everything, even though that was the hardest part. Was like, I didn't want to, like, I felt fine, but obviously I had to postpone everything. Um, and then Tim had been working on this for me for my birthday. So he came and dropped this off from a comfortable distance away. But he made this custom Shaq T figure um, that I'd given him the head a while ago, or I had bought it thinking that I was going to paint it myself. We had a little toy day with Frederick where we were all here painting. Um, And I'm very lucky that like two of the best customizers in the world happen to live within 20 minutes from me. And so I think this weekend we're gonna have a little painting day as well. But this is a Figure Arts Ben Kenobi arm and robe, Asajj Ventress underneath, and a 3D printed head. And I'm gonna bring her in so we can look at this insane paint job
That's
that took
incredible.
him years. At least it should have. Even like she's got the gold rivets on her forehead. Um, I could not in a million years have done this. And so that one I still remember, like opening that up, and it was just such a highlight of what could have been a really shitty day.
So did
Um,
you know that that was coming in any form, or you just knew that you'd given him
I
a head in the past? And
I'd given him a head. I knew he was working on it for me. I didn't think it would look this good. It just like blew me away. I could not believe how vibrant and perfect everything looked. Um, and so that was really great. That was, an incredible gift to get.
that's the difficulty of seeing customs, because you go, well, why isn't this thing available? Why isn't this character available?
Mhm.
Uh, in a mass produced way.
Yeah. I mean, you look at what Tim would have to charge to do a custom like this, regardless of the cost of parts, just
Oh
the
yeah,
amount
no,
of
no, I'm not
labor and
talking
time.
about. I'm
And
talking about from the major companies that like,
oh, like why
okay,
haven't they done? Well,
yeah,
no, I know, but even so, it's like you can only get machines and workers to do so much for $25.
and only so many
So,
figures in as we've seen from the glut of the last few months of 2022, when everything suddenly decided to show up.
mhm.
There can be too many figures
Yeah,
released sometimes.
yeah. And but anyway, yeah, I really
That
like that
is
one.
now the thing that's always been on customs like this, because obviously that's built from a lot of different pre-existing parts as well, kit bashed.
Mhm.
What is the articulation like? Does it retain the articulation of all of the
So she's
component
still
pieces?
got the full the head doesn't turn, just given like the nature of the head tails.
Right.
Even on a Black Series figure, this she wouldn't be moving much. Full articulation in the arms, because these are Figure Arts hands and shoulders. So depending on the oh, and then this is a like a skirt underneath because the Asajj Ventures had a soft goods. So this is from I think a Buffy figure possibly. Um, that's just the straight up Figure Arts part falling apart. That's not even the customized part. Um, but
That's
oh
how you can
god,
tell
yeah,
it's authentic figure arts.
right, yeah. If it was Mayfix, it would be in a salad right now. A million pieces. Anyway, so yeah, depending on it, you do get some articulation. And luckily, these brown robes are the original colors, so they're not painted, so we don't need to worry about joint rub and that sort of thing. But when I do my customs, I largely, I make them, I paint them, I pose them, I touch up the joints, and I kind of leave them in that position, just sort of as a statue to represent the character on my shelf. Um, but almost always, like a Black Series figure is gonna be better than a custom unless you switch out. I have a lot of like hand painted heads on my Black Series figures, but the articulation and just like the feel of that material is the best. Like I think Black Series, you were asking me about my preferences before between the three lines. I think Black Series are the most fun to play with and just kind of pose around because you're not worried about breaking them. I feel like every time I take one of my Figure Arts out, I snap something or break a wrist peg or a piece of a gun, and it's really frustrating.
Do you feel they're more delicate than how you treat customs?
uh, yeah, because a lot of my customs, because Figure Arts and Mafex are so expensive, a lot of my customs are just made with Black Series parts. And but yeah, it depends. I've been getting a little bit better about putting switching out joints and that sort of thing because like my Darth Maul Clone Wars custom that I made about a year ago, that was held like his arms and legs were attached with sticky tack, like and he was propped up on a shelf where he was like leaning on something. um but I was just like, I don't need this. I know it'll come out eventually in the Black series. So a lot of times I feel like my customs are just ways for me to
Placeholders.
placeholders. Yeah, and if it never comes out, then it's there, or like at
And
least have some
certainly there's
representation.
different kinds of resin that can be used. How delicate do you find the heads to be, the custom heads?
I've dropped heads by that I've paid $50 for, and they're usually still flawed. Like I've dropped them on hard floors and they bounce a bit. And I haven't had any serious dings or dents in them, luckily, so far. I did break off Padawan Anakin's ponytail, but I just tucked that behind the zero, little tiny pieces of black tack, and it stays. Um,
And that's a
so they're not
simple
too
bit of
bad, but
framing.
I don't. Yeah, but I don't really play with my figures in general, other than I'll mess around with them a little bit, put them in a few poses, and then I usually pick something and stick it on the shelf.
And using your
Um,
stands, you reduce the risk of them just toppling over.
exactly, yeah.
Not like
Yeah,
poor
like
Mike's display,
yeah.
which
Um,
often gets a bump or a nudge or an animal. Uh,
yeah, and when I designed the hexagon stands, I had such a sense of like trying to understand why no one had done it before. Because like I don't, it's like people have done action figure stands before. But I guess what I really didn't like about those was I don't like the way a figure looks with a base. That's like that on a shelf where you can see the bottom of it is not an appealing. I'm spoiling my number one. That's not like an appealing thing to me. Um, and so by kind of building a stand that incorporates the stand into the base, so it still looks like the figure's just sitting on top of it, was much more appealing to me. And then also the design of the stands to be in a way that a figure is never blocking the one behind it, and it staggers them just enough that you can have something a little bit more visually appealing than just like a row of figures that are all the same height. Um,
right, because
and
you're always just going
that
to
sort of thing. So,
lose, as I know full well, you're always going to lose stuff in the mix when it's all
mhm.
on the same plane.
Yeah, and then having like the little ridge in the stand also really helps with, not knocking them around as much. Let me grab. Yeah, here's just like a 3-pack. Um, and then it helps to print. You want to print the stands the same color, but having that sitting there, I
Well, there's
can,
something to be said for a visual pop as well sometimes.
true. Yeah, and I've thought about adding, just the way I did here, just adding some variations that you can kind of clip onto the stands to add something there. But like I can do that, and the stands are gonna fall off before the figure does.
But as far as those side pieces, because the stands are hollow inside, right?
Yeah, I print them with a lightning infill. So if I squeeze this really hard, I could bust through it with my bare hands. But uh,
Meaning that you maybe could do swappable panels with magnets, or if you
oh
want to put
yeah,
insignia on certain ones of them.
yeah. I'm gonna figure out the best way to do that because I don't like involving as like magnets and external materials too much, just because I want you to be able to make the whole thing with your printer and
Right.
just maybe a little bit of glue. But I have thought about different ways to incorporate things into there for
But they are brilliant,
yeah.
and as you should. I mean, the fact that they're modular and you can expand the display is also a plus.
Yeah, that was it, was basically I just they say um like I always wanted to be an inventor when I was a kid, and you would always hear, okay, we'll find a problem and solve it. And this was like a legitimate problem that I had for myself and displaying my stuff, and then I solved it in the way that I actually wanted. It's like it's something that I actually use on a daily basis pretty much. And by having, by I feel like if you brought in someone that's a product designer and said, "Hey, make something for action figure collectors," if they weren't a collector, they would just they probably wouldn't have settled on the same thing. But it solved real problems that I had for myself,
Yeah. Well, I
and
mean,
I think
I need
that's
to
like
get you on
what
my
makes
shelf
it work.
extenders.
Yeah.
So what is your number two choice?
um, this
And
one
and
is
and and
also
and we didn't quite get spoiled. The frame didn't quite spoil your number one,
okay.
thankfully.
Perfect.
So before you get to number two, or as you get to number two,
Okay.
was your number one always going to be your number one to your mind?
No, I it probably would have the number one is the one that I grab off my shelf to show people when I start talking about customizing and or just even figure collecting in general. I want to be like, okay, these aren't the 77 Kenner figures, or these aren't the Phantom Menace figures that you had as a kid. Like, this is what I'm talking about when I say I collect figures. Um, but we'll look at that next. So this right here is a kit that I saw online, and the body, this is what I think makes this brilliant, and also all the more inexcusable that Hasbro hasn't made this yet. This is the Death Star gunner body, and so all I got was this helmet and this vest, and I had to heat up the head to pop it off, stuck the vest on, popped the head back on, and then sat that helmet right on top of the head, and it is a long-awaited, very wished-for character that is also a troop builder, and really flabbergasted why, or like, not sure why we haven't gotten this in the Black Series yet, but
Now, I want to
something about
confirm
this,
we didn't talk about your list ahead of time.
right?
At all. I didn't know it was going to be on your list until we just started talking.
Oh, because you have it in the back there, huh?
Well, I've been slowly organizing some shelves, and in the back of a shelf in another room, I had that hot toy just hidden away for a while, and I took it down. I thought, oh, since I've taken it down, I'll put it just in the display back here. So,
right, and that's a really valuable one, right?
yeah, I think this was
No,
like a super came and went sort of release.
yeah, I think I looked that up recently, and it's like $1,300. Does that sound right?
I mean, it may be. All I know is that
Yeah,
it
I
was
might be
sort of
thinking of a different one, but that design, there's something so campy about it. It's so goofy and so 70s pulp, like ripe for parody. It's just like,
well, I mean, it's
but it's
I mean,
also
this is what
cool
gave
and
us
elegant.
the Spaceball helmets essentially.
Exactly, yeah. It's so silly, but somehow so cool.
And he's
And
got Vader's cloth, the ribbing for
oh, nice.
the
Yeah,
actual
that's missing
shirt.
on mine. Maybe I need Vader on. But yeah, it's just
I'll
such
send
a
you photos.
simple kit bash, and but also the execution of this to get a shiny, like, it's 3D printed, but then to get a shiny black finish that is so clean, and then that white decal on it that has no outline, like, that execution is just so impressive. And this guy kind of came out of nowhere and just started posting some customs, and he made that, and I was like, you got to send me one. And he says he's updated it since, so he's sending me a new kit to post about. So I'll review that on my channel. But um,
But that's the
it's just
joy of
so
customs, right?
clever. Yeah, it's just so fun, and it was so finished right out of the box. I opened it and I popped it on, and it was done. And I think that's like a perfect custom or a
Which
perfect
I've mentioned
product.
this before in now numerous of these episodes, but it surprises me that things like that isn't something that you would think that Hasbro Pulse would exist for.
Yeah.
Like, to have that
Mm,
kit, a kit like that you can go, hey, here's something you buy directly from us to
yeah.
accessorize if you want to troop build that. So we don't have to produce a brand new figure.
Hmm.
We just have to produce those accessories, or
Yeah.
or the stuff like replacement lightsabers and the prop stuff you're doing, because they used to do those. I don't know if you remember with the episode 1
Accessory
prop,
packs. Yeah.
yeah, that you would have just here's your Tatooine pack with random
Yeah.
crates and ponchos and such.
That's sort of what I've been trying to do, because there's such a joy to that, and to accessories, and like just silly world building accessories that we like. The I always remember the data pad that came with Watto. Uh, that stuff is so fun, and is so, even if you don't display your figures with it, just having that around, there's something so awesome about that.
Or
And I
the
think,
Mando tray that you made, which I printed out in white, but
oh,
you
nice.
made just the
Yep.
drink tray,
Yeah,
the
it's
cafeteria
so
tray.
simple, and I feel like it adds, it's like if these figures came with a couple extra accessories just for world building, it's like you get, occasionally they do, and it's so fun when they do, but it feels like you've got
Yeah, you get
so
a
much
cup
more to
with bib.
do.
Out of nowhere, you get a cup with
Yeah.
bib,
Yeah,
but
and
you
like,
don't get like a glass with Mon Mothma.
mhm. Yeah, I wish we saw one. So what I tried to do with a lot of the resin accessories that I've been doing, um, this was another like me really wanting to make something that people can buy. And so I started designing all these Jedi or Jedi accessories, such as the Count Dooku bust, the Qui-Gon's little Comtech or the Jedi like walkie-talkie, a few other things that are all on my Instagram, and I've got even more coming that fit with the Jedi.
Are we gonna get a Jedi library out of you?
Well, in print condition made a really awesome Jedi library, so I didn't want to double up on that. But the yeah, I did the Dooku bust, and then I've got the little I've got here. I'll give you a preview one that hasn't been announced yet, or that I haven't announced yet. That I might continue the design to make the obvious addition to it, but uh, this little holo projector there.
Oh, nice.
And so that'll be up on the Patreon eventually. There's a fat clone head.
And that'll go
Um,
in just the standard hands. That's just the projector.
so I have a 3D printed hand on here that oops, sorry, that I got from someone else. I'm gonna figure out how to incorporate it, but yeah, I feel like even if the figure can't even properly hold the thing, it's still really cool to get. And so yeah, so all of the accessories that I'd released, other than the ones I posted today from the Tuscans, they've all been Jedi themed. And I really wanted to make like a temple accessory kit that I could mass produce, or not mass produce, but make 20 of them and sell them as a box that you would get with all these different accessories in it. But just because I so badly want to be able to buy something like that, um, that I think there's so many amazing customizers. I feel like no one's really doing kits or like pre-made stuff like this where you buy it and it sticks on. But it's like, imagine if this and the vest had come with a couple weapons that we don't have in the Black Series, and maybe like a Imperial computer terminal and a couple, like one big piece, one medium piece, a couple small pieces.
Well, like you did Tech's
um
goggles, which
mhm.
was a baffling exclusion from the actual figure.
Yeah, so I'd have loved to like sell those, but it comes with a Bad Batch cockpit chair, and it comes with
That's one request. If
a
I would
couple smaller
love,
things.
if we don't have enough of in any line, is chairs.
Hmm.
There,
Yeah,
the dearth of chair options for characters.
I I made this one for the Death Star. I have the Han Solo chair, and then this one is really cool for the Bad Batch. I really love the way that turned out. I want to make these in resin now that I have the resin printer.
So those are
Because
straight
it's
PLA right now.
Yeah, it's designed in three pieces, so no supports needed because no one likes printing with supports. But yeah, anyway, shall I show you number one?
Yes, please.
Cool. So this is I think from a customizer called Fet Clone that I think is just the best 1/12 scale painter. And this is Captain Hauser from the Bad Batch. And you know what? I'm gonna stick Cody on there too, since he also did that one. He just makes his own sculpts and paints them, and it's turned into his full-time job. And I just want to give you an idea of the level of detail on this. That is like,
I mean, they're
you
incredible.
can't you can't even believe that it's at 1/12 scale. Um, and this is the figure that I grab out of my closet to show people. Um, and they're like always just so blown away. Like just the stubble on his face and the different tones that you get in the skin.
Well, I mean, even
Like the
the
different
way his
undertones
hair
in the
is
skin.
shaved, and you can tell the stubble
Yep.
on that.
And then here I'll give you a peek at Cody also.
Good timing on Cody.
Yeah. Now I just need to repaint the body. I love that last episode of Bad Batch. It was one of my favorites so far.
And a show that just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah, truly.
So
Um,
you have a custom Omega too, don't you? Or just a custom
uh,
head on Omega?
I have young Boba Fett on the
Okay,
Omega body.
so you haven't gotten.
Um,
Is there a good Omega custom out there?
there isn't. The Black Series announced a season 2 Omega. Um, so I'm looking forward to that. Um, here's the um, Boba Fett or young Boba on the Omega body. So I painted the body up, and then this head is from Nuno uh, on Instagram, and they did the sculpt and the paint job. And yeah, it's nice to have that next to Django on the shelf.
So how many Fett clone customs do you have?
I have at least 10 now, 10 heads. This is the only full body that I bought from him, this Hauser. I had to beg him for that. And the helmet is 3D printed just so it's a little bit better shaped than the Black Series one. Um, but yeah, I had to like I checked on it for like weeks. I was like, oh, you make a decision yet? You gonna sell it? Um, and but yeah, I have about 10 from him, and then I've got 3 or 4 more on the way.
So what? But what made Hauser be your number one? I mean, do you like Hauser as a clone, or you just like what he
Um,
did overall
I
with
think
the figure?
that figure is just I think head to toe the best looking one in my collection. Um, that's the one, like I said, that's the one that I break out to show people what figures look like these days. Which isn't really, I'm giving the stores a little bit more credit than they deserve, but or like giving Hasbro more credit than they deserve. Since it's not a Hasbro figure, but I just think that's the most visually impressive one that exists. Where did
It's
Ula
almost
go?
like you designed this to perfectly fit your top five for the show because you
This
could get your fifth on there, right? In between, but
there she is. Let's see. Um, gotta keep the people interested.
well, it totally worked. Now, as far as because we've talked about the stuff that you do that everyone can get through your Patreon,
Mhm.
uh, of the stuff you've done, what is your favorite piece that you've done?
Um, I'm really proud of the hexagon stands just because that is genuinely something that I use every day. Um, I don't have a lot of stuff saved. I tend to give most of it away or sell it, or a lot of friends have some of the stuff. I just don't have a lot of space here for it.
I've been very jealous of the videos that Mike has made with
Of getting this
the
stuff.
display. Yes,
Well, you've got a printer, right?
I do, but I can't paint for anything. But I did
Yeah.
print out some of your stuff, as you saw, with the teaser
Um,
image, which I hope everyone was able to figure out. Of
oh, the little
again,
Stormtrooper
little
doll.
prop
Yeah.
things like that.
Yep. I need to make a new one of that for resin printers that has both sides to it because but again, it's like every shelf has a back to it. So sometimes you gotta just hide the back. Oh yeah, I like that you
Yeah,
painted the joints on it. That definitely helps the illusion.
yeah, and I did the
Um,
wash on it to.
this set was really special. Like this is one that I kept, um, and then God, I've done almost like 90 different designs in the past 2.5 years. Um, it's really hard to pick.
What's
Something
the
about the
fastest
tannins.
turnaround you've had? Like you were
I'll
inspired, like, oh my god, that is amazing. I need that on my shelf. I need that
I'll
option.
design something in a night and then have it done by the morning. Like I'll design it over a couple hours, set it to the printers, go to bed, and wake up and have it be done.
So speaking of are we gonna
Um,
get those game machines in Sid's bar?
the game machines?
Those
Does she have like?
little lotto machines that yeah, she has the
Oh
little
shoot, I need to go back and watch that. I did take a couple photos of her thing there, like the shelves behind her. I thought were really cool. We just need more like busy junk shops and like very populated, like a with very populated dioramas. I want to make like a really busy scene. I've done that a couple times with like Watto's shop, and then I also did um, the clone or like the Imperial storage thing where you can store all your spare accessories.
Well, I mean, something that Ula speaks to and Shakti, and you talk about customization and customizers and sort of the niche they fill of sort of unfulfilled things that people just don't have because the
Hmm.
companies aren't producing them. One of the things the Black Series seems very much to have a dearth of is the pure alien characters from Star
Hmm.
Wars. Are there any of them that you wish, like, if you had a wish list of figures you wish would be, actually produced?
Um, so my wish list and like my um the figures that I really want are typically Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones characters because those were the only figures I had as a kid. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. At some point, I did have. I'm grabbing some Phantom Menace customs or some Attack of the Clones as well. Um, Something about those movies are the most nostalgic to me, and I did have some original trilogy stuff growing up, but that they didn't hit me in the same way, and so um, this is a young Anakin Black Series
Nice
and
callback to the
a
first Star Wars figure
um,
you ever got.
yep, I needed to have that, and then a Sebulba that I printed and painted myself. Um, and then I glued him to the hexagon stand so he doesn't really look because he came with his own stand, just because he physically can't stay up like that. But I figured if I glued him to the hexagon stand, it would look kind of like he was floating on his own. I'm gonna push this back a little bit. And then this is one that I made. This is one of my first customs that just kind of I got lucky and it came out good enough to
That's
still
a
have on
great
the
Sam.
shelf. Yeah, this is a Black Panther skirt and then just a GI Joe body. And then once you get the right, this was a 3D printed head that I bought from I think Twin Suns Casting. The paint job on the eyes is terrible, but like you don't really see it. And it's like completely inaccurate, but you look at it and you know exactly who it is. And that's kind of been my with customs. If you look at it and you see that character and you feel that character on your shelf, then it's
Yeah,
close
no, I
enough.
could look at that and yeah. I
Um,
mean, but also isn't, when you talk about the Black Series and a lot of the reuse they do, just because it's
yeah,
what
it
makes it
wouldn't
economically
be accurate
feasible,
anyway.
how much is carried just through color, even
Yep.
of our identification of a character, even though the actual details are a little bit wonky if you were to look
I
at them.
always, both with my dioramas and my customs, I'm like, if you don't know that it's wrong by looking at it, if you have to go reference it to check if it's accurate, then it's accurate enough. um, and so here's one that I did the other day that also is a Phantom Menace, figure that I'd always would love to see in the Black Series, which is Padme and her Tatooine, because this is one of the first Phantom Menace figures they did. And this is a big mishmash of parts. But this feels like a milestone to me as a customizer, just because of how many different parts I mixed and taking the time to make them all fit together so she's fully posable and articulated. But this is like Ray's torso, Bush Leia's chest, Marvel Legends Katie skirt, Ahsoka legs and feet, and then these little tufts I sculpted with epoxy
Where
for the
was the
cuffs
head a
on her.
custom head, or is that from
That's the Attack of the Clones Padme. So the hair is, she has her hair running down her back in that, and I cut off Ewok Leia Village or Ewok Village Leia's hair to see if I could make that work. And
but it
there's
looks
some
just like the
from the front, it looks
for
fine,
Padme. Yeah.
but yeah, there's some discrepancies here and some scaling stuff. Like her head's a little too small, the neck's a little big, just lots of little things. But for a custom, I'm pretty happy with this, and it's not, I'm not gonna bend over backwards to make that work any more accurately than it already is.
So do you still have any of your childhood figures?
No, my parents gave them away. I think they asked me if it was okay. I was just so disinterested. And I don't, I've seen a lot of them in stores. I've seen a lot of that Phantom Menace line in stores, and I don't, uh, I don't have any desire to own them still or to buy. I've even found that little Anakin and thought like, oh, I have to get this. And then I'm like, you know what? It's just gonna go sit in a box somewhere. I'm not gonna have it out on display. I have such a limited display space,
But then you're gonna
that I
have
don't
your
really
Black
need
Series
to.
scale Anakin with the little 3 3/4 Anakin and like a little bag on his back, carrying him like
Yeah,
Yoda.
honestly, that backpack would actually probably work with this figure because it's so big. Um, but anyway, yeah.
I mean, those are brilliant. So, one of the things that you had teased in your recent video coming up, because you talked about the uh making characters available that
Hmm.
weren't, which seems to be something that you're expanding into. So, what is the thing that is coming up soon for you?
Um,
And this is, speaking of Attack of the Clones,
okay, you're referring to the Geonosian.
I am.
Yeah, so that has been shared, and it was really cool to see how fast people started making that. Like day by the evening that I posted it, I feel like almost 10 people had them in their collections already, at least printed. That was really exciting to see. I work with this amazing sculptor uh, on some things, and I asked him if he wanted to tackle that. And so this was the one that I printed. There's a whole variety of different. Let me raise this up a little bit. There's a whole variety of different options available for making this guy. And yeah, I just think let me see if I
I
just
mean,
like
I'm looking at that, and if you had told me that you would pick that up from Target today, I would believe you.
Mhm. um yeah, he did an amazing job with the sculpt, and then just having the wings are peg into each other so you can kind of adjust them if you just want to have them folded up behind his back. And those can be adjustable even after you've printed it. And then the different legs and arms that he made, and different faces. So you can make like probably 15 different combos, if not more, to really like build out an entire shelf there. But yeah, just a surprising hole in the Black Series, that I'd love to see. And I am working with someone new. I just got the files today. I haven't printed them yet, but he's doing. We're gonna make our way through all of the Cantina aliens,
Brilliant.
and get all the heads. So I know that a lot of other people have a lot of the like Outer Rim traders, I think, and Twin Suns closed, unfortunately, but there's places that you can buy the printed heads. But I noticed that like a lot of the people who have their printers don't really like buying a printed item that they can print themselves, and like I want to have multiples for when I'm learning painting and that sort of thing. And so we're going to be bringing just some custom sculpts to the Patreon as well, and just expanding it beyond just PLA stuff. I've been really enjoying reaching the resin crowd.
Well, I have one request for whatever comes
I'm
years
ready.
from now, but this is the only request that I'll throw out
Yes.
there. Is on behalf of a lot of folks, we need
Hmm.
a Dexter Jetster.
Yeah. Um, I actually found so there's this other Patreon called Black Remnant, and they do stuff for tabletop miniatures. And they did this Princess Leia from the Kenobi series that I scaled up to Black Series scale, and a lot of their sculpts are quite they're a little bit animated, and the proportions are a little
Exaggerated,
um, exaggerated, yeah, for miniatures. But they made
stylized.
this Leia that looks
Oh,
great,
that's
and
brilliant.
so she's up there next to my
And the resolution on
Obi-Wan.
that scaled up nicely for it being a
Yeah,
miniature.
and this was one of the first face paints that I did that I didn't hate myself for. I even painted Lola. Um, but they also did this Watto that scaled really nicely, and so I'm going to paint this up next.
Now, is that PLA?
This is resin. Um, and then I think I got the scale pretty good for this. But they also have a Dexter Jester that it's a little cartoonish, but I think if I stretch it vertically just a tiny bit, and scale it up, I think it might work. So obviously it's not a not perfect, but it would be cool to do a
Because we certainly,
custom.
I mean, that's there's in the 3 3/4. I mean, this was sort of the golden age of big alien creatures in the 3 3/4 line. It's a,
Oh, that's so good. I had that one.
I mean,
You know, I
this still ranks about, I think, one of the best figures sculpt wise and paint wise that they ever did in 3 3/4.
it's so cool. Yeah, I seen that recently, and I want to buy it every time. Uh, that might actually. I've been learning
Even for
ZBrush.
reference, you should get it if you're eventually going to do it in
Yeah,
a Black Series
you
scale,
know,
because the paint reference is great on it.
I'm gonna buy that right now. I'm looking on eBay right now.
And
And
he's pretty cheap because they really produced a
12
lot
bucks.
of these figures. But the
Yeah.
fact that he has the soiling on the apron, the fact that he's got the loose pants in the back,
It's an amazing
and that
figure.
all four arms are articulated.
I'm going to buy that, and then I'm gonna see if I can make that in ZBrush, because I've been learning ZBrush, and alien heads are a great way to learn ZBrush because they're a lot harder to mess up than human heads. Um, but I think that would be a fun one for me to start practicing with.
Well, Godspeed. And look, he's even got a lot of different props that you can build out too,
Yeah, that's awesome.
like that Kemino and Dart, which is surprising. You get something that small from them in that period.
Yeah, that's so cool. Did you
Uh,
notice that the Bad Batch shuttle looks a lot like a Camino and Saber Dart?
no, I did not notice that.
Check out the Bad Batch ship. It's shaped like that dart.
Which I guess makes
Camino,
sense. I mean, it's the
Camino
same.
and Saber Dart. Uh,
So Dexter's going to have, this is going to be the year of Dexter, right? This is what I'm hearing.
I will. That's a great one. I'm gonna start playing around and see if I can make that happen.
You'll make a lot of people happy.
Yeah.
The only thing that might make them just as
Obi-Wan!
happy from that is what? An Embo? People are always asking for Embo.
People are always asking for Embo. Yeah, that's another good suggestion.
Speaking of what would be simpler alien shapes to pull off, as opposed to a human face. Uh, so do you have a wish list at all for the year ahead?
Um, I do. I've made so many different wish lists for different videos and different
Is there one that
uh
remains unfulfilled that keeps appearing on the wish list, or have you pretty much found a way through customs to pretty much get all the things that you wanted?
I still want a two tubes. Uh-oh, we've got some issues going on here. Sorry. Uh I yeah, there's a I'm trying to think if there's any that I really
Is there a
am
fancy Luthen
missing.
head sculpt out there yet? Do we have fancy Luthen?
I think there is someone on eBay that's made it. Yeah, my wish list is usually newer stuff. I really want a Dedra and Cyril from Andor. Those are going to be ones that I'm sure they're coming, and those are ones that are going to be really exciting to get. Probably my most wanted characters from that show. Although the Luthen figure is 10 out of 10, is really incredible.
And the Kino's
Trying
already out there, right?
Frederick made a Kino. Yeah, I actually have a Kino head that Frederick gave me. He said it's a deposit that he's going to make me the rest of the figure. But finding the right parts to make that is been tricky. But
Who did your
um,
Krennic head? Where did that come from?
that was Tim's Toys. Uh, yeah, I love that Krennic as well.
Very jealous of the
Um,
Krennic head, because that's a figure that they clearly need to revisit, and I'm shocked they didn't when they did all the other
well,
re-releases.
they've got the raincoat now, and that would be a really cool way to from the Andor figure. And I think mixing that with an updated photoreal head and throwing a hat on him would be a really cool way to re-release that. But we'll see if that ends up happening.
If we see him in
But
Andor season 2.
yeah, I know Hasbro pays attention to a lot of a lot of the stuff that fans are doing, and so I'm trying to make it easy on them, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, looking at this Geonosian warrior right now, you
Yeah,
would hope would inspire something. But again, they just simply really aren't doing aliens. I mean, I understand
yeah.
you
I
can't
mean,
really do reuse.
they do. They have done lot of aliens, but there's still a long way to go.
Yeah, I was surprised
Um,
we actually got a Jar Jar out of them.
yeah, I'm so glad they waited to do Jar Jar, because if they had done him back in pre 2015, it would have been terrible. But that figure is really like, they should have won awards for that figure. I think it's one of the top 10 Black Series figures of all time.
Well, I wanted to quickly, before we wrap up, do a couple of quick shares of stuff that's come in
Okay.
recently. Because I talked about that same era as when Dexter Jetster came out, and sort of the weird side characters that we'd get in the line.
Mhm.
And so one of the recent things, I got the Captain Antilles in the process of being choked figure.
Oh, nice.
When you talk super specific moments to be
Yeah,
captured in action figure form for, at this period in time, the line was for kids. So
yeah.
despite them saying fans choice, it was mass marketed in all of the stores as a kids line. And there's your Captain Antilles getting choked figure, and he is not enjoying his time in the package either. So
That
uh
I mean, that's pretty much just a repaint of the Rebel Trooper, right? The like
uh
fleet Trooper,
no, I think it's
or
a
no?
completely new sculpt, new jacket and everything.
Well, no, not that, but I mean the outfit itself can work as a Rebel fleet, or like,
Yes,
I feel like
yes.
that they could reuse the mold.
Yeah. Well, no, what did he have a slightly different jacket than that? I'd have to look now.
Yeah,
I mean, he also got stands, which we don't get anymore uh with the figures. Uh Plus something I do miss occasionally in the line. Uh Diamond and Gentle Giant sent over the new Wrecker bust
ooh, very cool.
in the animated style, which I kind of wish there were options for that. I miss not having figures in the stylization of the animation as well,
Yeah.
like as an alternate. I'd love to have both. I like the realistic take, but I also would love to have animated style figures, just because
Right.
I mean there's a lot of character in that, and that's fun on a shelf.
Hmm. I agree. Yeah.
But also great backpack.
Yeah. If we have to get animated figures represented, I'm happy to get them. Or like, I do like that it's a consistent. Uh, they're all human looking in the Black Series, or like the what do they call it? Just realistic style, live action style.
Right. I mean, heck, I
But
wouldn't even mind. Give me a headset where I can just swap out the
swap them
heads,
out.
even if it's not the bodies that are exactly
Yeah.
specific to the animation. I would love to just have. Although the
Yeah. It's
Record
like
Black
the.
series is probably the one of the best they've done when it comes to actually giving character to the
Mhm.
expression.
Yeah, I
Uh,
agree.
and then the last thing I'll share is the my progression of trying to paint my 3D prints with Sharpies, just because I
Oh,
don't have any
oh,
acrylic paints.
this here. Uh-huh.
So I did the little mini Jabba.
Very nice. I saw that on your Instagram, and I was like, wait, did he did he use Sharpies on that?
Yeah, I mean
That was
that
amazing.
was, yeah, just what, basically the green and the orange, and
Yeah,
then the wash knocked back the orange.
that's
And
wild.
so then I went next step up and did this
And
scale with just
did the one.
Sharpies.
Did you do like a dark wash on that after?
Yeah, yeah.
Is that what I'm seeing? Crazy.
I should invest in acrylic paints. I know, but
I
the Sharpies were handy,
wouldn't.
and it's a nice Zen exercise when I'm taking a break from doing other things.
Yeah,
To
I
just
wouldn't
sort
call
of,
acrylic paints an investment. They're about $2.
they're an investment
Actually,
of
no. Yeah, they are a proper
time.
set.
Yeah. This also seemed low risk to me for some reason.
Yeah.
This seemed lower risk than committing to paints This was just, hey, I have these two colors of Sharpie. Can I make this work?
And
But when
hey,
you
if you
talk
mess it
about that
up,
idea of it real, this suddenly existing, I mean, again, the magic of 3D printing of
mhm,
just, oh, hey, here's a Jamba.
yeah.
And here he is slightly larger.
What I love about customizing too is like when you get the recipe right, like I think this Padme that I showed before is like a good example of one that just kind of like it works. It's like I had all of those in my house. Like I had all of those figures in my home, and then I just decided one night to do it, and then there she is,
And that
Phantom Menace
exists
Padme,
forever on your
and now it
shelf.
exists. Yep, and it's like that. She already existed, just in different pieces. I always think that when I like look at a piano that's not being played, and just like every song that's ever been written can come out of that thing. It just needs a person to do it.
Do you find that you have more of an eye towards that now when you're looking at figures like, oh, that piece would make a great this for that character?
Oh yeah, and that's the worst part about plastic free packaging because I get there's so many great comic stores in LA like Frank and Son. I always say comic stores. I don't want to mean like toy shops, but that if you can walk into and look at thousands of figures, and so when you're looking for a particular part, we walk in there and it's like you never know what you're going to find and from what era. And so being able to walk in and look at different things is really helpful when you're looking for particular parts. And so with plastic free packaging, obviously you can't see inside the box anymore, and it's really hard to get an idea of the quality without having to Google pictures of the figure.
Right. And what the scale is
um,
actually.
yeah.
But as
Is
you
it a
said, I
bigger
mean, you're
problem than
using GI
plastic in
Joe
the world?
line,
No,
you're
but
using Marvel line, you're using Star Wars line, you're using
yep,
whatever
yeah,
necessary.
whatever. Yeah, and then whenever I find, when places have huge sales on Black Friday and that sort of thing, um, I'll look at different figures and just see if anything looks Star Warsy enough that I can use. And I have a ton of heads coming in from Scoticus Customs that I plan on putting on. I'll need like 10 or 15 different bodies, and when you're making original characters or just alien characters, you can kind of use whatever and just pick what looks good and give them some personality. Um, so that's a really fun way to mix and match different figure lines as well
I mean,
when you're not worried about accuracy.
I watch your videos and I've been very happy and a little upset that you've turned me on to some of the great customizers out there because I worry about how much I would spend
Yeah, it's
in that
been
because you look at that stuff like I'm looking going, boy, maybe I'll just get a Rex head and
mhm.
I'll be happy with
Just
that.
one, right?
But then I'm like, well, that Tarkin looks good too. And
Yeah.
boy, that other one looks great, and maybe I should get that. And that's a nice Palpatine. And again, speaking of figures we don't have, which you have a great custom of, the fact that we don't have, a pre-disfigurement senatorial Palpatine
Palpatine, I
seems
know.
wrong somehow.
Yeah, the
Uh
one I made is such a simple kit bash for the body, but it just totally feels like Palpatine. And I mean, having that clone head that looks amazing definitely helps.
yeah, as long as he's fancy,
Um,
as long as he's fancy and he
yeah,
has that head, then you buy him as that's Wednesday Palpatine.
yeah. I used the what did I use? A Severus Snape torso,
I mean, it looks great.
um, and then just a random skirt from. I think it's the same skirt that's on my Shaq T figure.
What's a very versatile skirt. Uh,
Yes.
but this has been really fun having you on the show.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. This has been fun to chat.
So where would you prefer people? Obviously, they should go to your YouTube channel and subscribe to that and watch all the videos
Yeah,
because that's all
Landspeeder Luke on
wonderful.
YouTube. That's the newest endeavor, and that's been really fun to create and grow. And it's a whole new beast to learn.
And it's not even a year old,
Figuring out.
right?
I started in May of 2022. Yeah, so about 7 months. old. And yeah, that's been a lot of fun to build. And but yeah, Patreon, if you're interested in 3D printing, if you go to landspeederluke.com, you can find a quick preview of every single thing that's available on my Patreon. And there's even more on the Patreon itself, but that'll give you an example. And everything is available at the base tier, so there's no archiving or any of that taking place. So if you can join today, go back and print whatever I posted 2 years ago. There's over 80 or 90 different downloads for resin and PLA printing. And yeah, also Instagram is like where I kind of post everything as it happens. Also, just Landspeeder Luke across the board.
Your Patreon is a slippery slope. I continually go back to going, this will be the month that I dive in, but I know I would spend so much on filament.
Yeah,
as soon
that's
as
the
I
thing.
do that, because there's so much, even the stuff, because there's a couple of things you put up there as previews, as free things that people can access. Even that,
Yeah.
I look at and go,
Like,
that's a lot of filament I'm gonna have to get,
yeah.
because I want to make every single one of those.
Well,
Everything.
everything is also available on Etsy in case you want to just buy one at a time.
They're all slippery slopes. Everywhere I
I
look,
know.
I'm on top of a slippery hill.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But
but
printing
that
is so
speaks
much
to how,
cheaper than buying.
or if you don't have the skills making it yourself.
Hmm.
So it certainly is there. There's a wish fulfillment
Yeah.
to all of the stuff, and again, it speaks to, I wouldn't be this aggravated with myself and concerned about it if the work that you did wasn't so good.
Thank you.
So that's the thing that is the most frustrating in trying to avoid that slippery slope, is seeing how good it all is, and seeing Mike's little look at the cantina. I think what Robo got the Mandalorian throne from you
Yeah, I've
for
got to
his
send
ball.
Robo a new package. It's been a while.
Him showing that
But
off, it
yeah.
yeah, there's once you start getting chairs on there, once there's a Dexter on, it's a whole thing. It's gonna be a whole
It'll
thing.
happen. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I know I know it's inevitable. It has to be.
It'd
And
be
perish
interesting to
forbid.
calculate how much filament it would take to print everything on the Patreon. But I don't, then I would have to acknowledge how much I've spent on filament over the last 3 years. Because
Again,
I've printed everything at least
slippery
once.
slopes all around.
Mhm.
They're all slippery. We should avoid it all. But what
Yeah.
people should not avoid is definitely, at the very base minimum, going and subscribing to your YouTube channel, checking everything out, and following you on social media, and going to the website. And then, you know what? They should all go to the Patreon and choose for themselves their journey on that slippery slope.
Yep.
And hopefully one day soon, again, I will make the inevitable decision to start printing everything, and be there for everything that's to come, because it never ends. That's the other thing. Once you're in because you keep making things, so it's
Yeah,
never
and
going to stop.
I've got 3 printers, so I'm making stuff faster than most people can print it now, or like I'm able to pump stuff out way too fast.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and they just keep making shows, and it's just,
I know.
yeah, no, it's all around. It's all around super awkward in the best possible way.
Yeah.
So again, go support Landspeeder Luke in all the things. Thank you for being on the show. If you want to support me, you can go to patreon.com/KenPlume, or go to my link tree, has all of the stuff. linktr.ee/KenPlume has links to everything. KenPlume.com also does Bit of a Chat, another podcast that I do. I'm starting to put archives up of stuff that I've done in the past. So expect some interviews with some folks. I think I'm going to digitize my old Frank Oz interview. So that's like 3 hours of conversation with Frank Oz that you'll be able to hear him
Wow,
swear like a sailor
that's awesome.
throughout, in the most fun way. It is, so that'll be coming soon. Also, The Art of DuckTales. If you haven't gotten a copy yet, and you want the great art of book, there's the standard edition. These are very heavy. It's hard to lift these at the end of the show. There's the standard edition. If you want to get the deluxe edition, it has the standard edition in it. Also, a whole bonus book of expanded interviews. And I still have a few of the art prints available, book plates. If you want to get that, you can go to DuckTales. No, it's bit.ly/DuckTales book for info of the book, bit.ly/duckart for the art print. It's all shiny and such. Please hit subscribe. You know this better. What should I say? Please hit subscribe, like this video, all the things that people say you should do. Maybe I'll figure out how to end these shows, but until then, bye everybody.